What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto, and good afternoon, and welcome to this new middle of the day market update. We're going to do a full update here in this video on the markets, right? So we'll start off with the fundamentals, and that's also why I'll call this video something like critical, crucial, urgent update, whatever. But there's quite a lot of fundamentals that I think you need to know about. And there's some interesting things I wouldn't necessarily say that are, super bearish or anything, but you do need to know about it, and they can have some pretty severe implications. Now, first of all, this week I am not going to upload the daily videos in the morning. I will try to put out one of these updates every day. I'm not home currently, enjoying some vacationing finally for the first time in a while. So that's why I'm gone. But like I said, I will be back with these updates. So for now, let's get right into it. I don't want to take up too much of your time this beautiful Tuesday. So let's get right into it. Now, first of all, the fundamentals that I was talking about, we briefly spoke about those yesterday as well, and on Saturday even as well, right? So first of all, we have a trade deal between the United States and the EU. And by the way, the audio, I'm recording with my headset right here, so the audio is well, it's better than if I record with the default audio of my laptop, which I'm recording on right now. But this is worse than the real microphone I have, of course. But hopefully you can manage together with me. But ultimately, look, we reach a trade deal, of course, between the United States and the EU. That's great. That's also why the equity markets or the stock market has continued to surge. So this is purely fundamentally. This is good, right? I mean, this is positive as well for the crypto markets. Although, when we're talking about these markets, these general financial markets, we do have a lot of news this week, right? And the outcome of that news does matter. So I briefly wanted to talk about that, wanted to go over that, and then something more crypto specific. Then we'll talk some XRP, we'll talk some Ethereum, and then we'll talk some altcoins, because there are some interesting altcoin things that you need to know about as well. But okay, so tomorrow we have the FOMC meeting, right? And GDP data. So GDP data, what we want to see for a bullish reaction from the markets is growth, all right? It's very simple. We just want to see growth in the United States, because what we don't want to see is a recession. So that's key to watch. And then the interest rate decision. Look, the interest rate is going to be 4.5%. What matters is the tone during the Federal Reserve press conference. So if you have time, watch that and observe the tone about potential rate cuts in the later part of 2025, and if that's a realistic probability or not. But in general, we're probably going to see a lot of volatility that day around the press conference. So be aware of that. And then Thursday, we have major news. We have the PCE price index. That's basically inflation rate data. So for that, we want to see lower than expected data. And Friday, we have unemployment rate and non-farm payrolls. I would say that we want the unemployment rate to go to 4.2%, which is expected, and non-farm payrolls to be slightly lower than expected. But these are always a little bit counterintuitive, the results, and they're also going to provide a lot of volatility. So be ready for that, be aware of that. And finally, and this is something that I wanted to tell you about, I don't think it's something you need to worry about already too much right now. But if you take a look at the Coinbase Bitcoin premium, so basically, at what price Bitcoin is trading on Coinbase, what we want to see is a premium, so that it's trading higher on Coinbase compared to other exchanges. What you can see right now is that it's trading at a little bit of a discount. Now, we also did that the 15th of July, and after that, we just continued to be very stable. And we also did that back in May and June before we rallied higher. So, is this the end of the world? Definitely not, all right? But it is something, if we stay in a Coinbase Bitcoin discount for a prolonged time, it can be very bearish. Now, Bitcoin itself, look, altcoins, it's a different story, but Bitcoin itself is perfectly fine right now, perfectly stable within the balance right here between 119.6 and 116.7. And I expect us to remain relatively stable within that area, all right? I don't see any reason to suspect a breakout right now, so neither a bullish breakout or a breakdown, but stability is what I expect. And then what's going to happen with the markets will depend a lot on altcoin strength. And at this point of time, honestly, I'm not too certain about altcoins, especially going into the FOMC tomorrow. It's quite often that you see some de-risking going on, and if there's de-risking in the markets, then altcoins will underperform Bitcoin. And that's also what we see, for example, with XRP, which in general I very much hold the same views as what I as what I hold on Bitcoin on XRP. All right, and I've said this last week as well. I think XRP is just going to remain relatively stable. Yesterday we failed to hold the 4-hour trend band right here, so we did not get a move into 3.4, drop down below that. That's fine, all right? We're just going to be correlated with Bitcoin, probably going to get a move into the 30-day rolling VWAP, find some support there, get a bit of a bounce, maybe get a spike into 2.8, 2.85. But ultimately XRP, and that's a good thing, just looks and remains quite stable here. Now Ethereum is different. Ethereum actually has a chance to still rally up higher, but the main level in my eyes is this level right here at 3,800. Yesterday I also said we need to hold that if we actually want to see a continued surge in price. We dropped down a little bit lower, but ultimately we still very much held that 3,800 area. So again, that's going to be the main test today. Can we hold that? All right, well, then great. We're going to remain relatively stable and we can still expect a move into the 4,000s. If we're going to be unable to hold that, especially if there's quite a lot of volume coming into the markets, that's bad news, all right? And then we could actually see somewhat of a deeper pullback. But as it stands right now, I would say stability and a continued upwards momentum for Ethereum looks most likely. Now, an alert just went off because there's two main narratives in terms of altcoins that I briefly wanted to talk about, and that's two ecosystems, all right? So the first ecosystem is the BNB ecosystem, so the Binance ecosystem. BNB itself against Bitcoin has actually been relatively strong. You can see that the price has also been in a strong uptrend right here, basically since the beginning of July. So that's very interesting and great to see, but BNB itself, I'm not the biggest fan of trading that. You can also see some bearish divergences, but I do think it's very much worth it to keep your eyes on BNB ecosystem projects, such as Lista, so that's this, PancakeSwap, but also Cat, right? So I think the full name is Simon's Cat. Is that true? Yeah, I think so. All of these do not look like buys right now, to be completely fair. But if they break out of the ranges, like Cat and Lista are in, and PancakeSwap as well, they're in ranges. So if they break out and BNB actually continues to be relatively strong, I think this is one of the main narratives that can do exceptionally well and has also shown that in the past. And then the main narrative right now is the Tron ecosystem, right? So TRX, if you take a look at TRX right here, that has been incredibly strong with Tron's stock listing and some news around that. So TRX itself is incredibly strong. It has the potential, I would argue, to rally all the way into 45 cents to fill the entire wick. That always has a bit of a magnet towards it. But personally, the two coins that I'm watching the most are JST, so that's Just Land, which is a part of the ecosystem. This is still relatively low, but this has also a history of spiking relatively high. So this is definitely one to keep your eyes on. And another one, but this is at a bit of a different, bit of a difficult space, I would say, is Sun, all right, which is obviously a major ecosystem project in the Tron ecosystem. But it has a lot of momentum. I think it can rally higher, but how you're going to trade that is a little bit more difficult. But okay, so those are my thoughts for today. I'll be back tomorrow with some more thoughts regarding altcoins and the markets. Take care, right? Be safe, especially if we see some continued de-risking going into the FOMC tomorrow. But for now, that's it. So thank you for watching. Have a great week, everybody, and bye.